is Oana Nasui. I'm from a cultural operator in Romania, having different projects with different experts, and I'm very, very glad and happy that our guest tonight made time and effort to join us. This session is part of Creative Skills Week. We are on our second year now when we participate online. Hopefully next year's will be also offline. But it's quite a very good approach to have this online perspective, because you can be anywhere. Actually, we are everywhere. So each of the panels is in another place. As you hopefully you could read about this session. It's about sustainable creative ecosystems. We try to be very inclusive. We try to find words that are concepts, and we are very happy to introduce our experts. Charlotte Lorenz Hjort. Okay, I have been practicing, Charlotte, but hopefully it went quite well. Charlotte is CEO of the Future by Lund. Actually, it's quite very interesting initiatives. Charlotte will tell us about it. I found out some time ago, and I was quite amazed. And I also visited Lund. Apropos Lund, I have visited this year, a wonderful and very smart city. And we are also joined by Rolf Hughes. He's education director at AIT Culture and Creativity, which is also how can I call it, a big organization very like a very umbrella organization, a very big umbrella organization, and also part of the Creative Skills Week initiative as well. As we are speaking before, Charlotte has also a presentation that maybe she will just pop in, pop out, or share a bit some slides with us when the information is very rich. But maybe we'll also follow kind of a semi-structured a set of questions, so that you can follow a bit closer. So actually, Charlotte, if you want to begin with Future by Lund, or you want to begin with that wonderful project that I have been following, this Equipe, which is about cultural policies, and well, it's a European policy platform, so to speak, because it's quite a generous resource of information, but also of new instruments and new materials that are creating within this project. So thank you, Charlotte. And
yes, very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. So let me combine a little bit Future by Lund and Equipe and Lund University. That's my employer, sorry. So I work at Lund University, what's called the Collaboration Office, and it's part of the central management. We have 9 faculties at Lund University. We being a very comprehensive university and one of Sweden's largest universities. So my assignment at the Collaboration Office is to cut across all the different faculties and work with the culture and creative industries. So my job is to make less silos between the different faculties and use the culture and creative industries as a part of catalyzing collaboration between the faculties. And in this work, we also need our ecosystem locally. So I'm put in as the CEO of our local innovation platform that we have created together with the industry, ecosystem partners, and the city of Lund. And it's now, after 15 years, a members organization where we have one of the focus areas are also the culture and creative industries. And this is where we work with collaborative projects, and we use a methodology that we call the portfolio approach, where we create a cross-innovation partnership between industry, between the different faculties, but also out in Europe. So we're very much engaged in different European networks, and we were also very active in competing with the other consortium that won the EIT Culture and Creativity KIC. And now when things are sorted out, we're all part of the same big family. So, but we had a good competition between us, and that's also needed to strengthen the way we work. So now we also joined the EIT Culture and Creativity KIC, and we're very happy to be part of different projects together with the partners. And in this work, we came to lead the EQIP project, where it's run as a Horizon project within GG Research and Innovation Cluster 2. And the assignment is to build a platform, a policy platform for innovation. And I'm leading that work, so it's very much part of a big chunk of what I do on a daily basis to coordinate. And we have been between 80 and 90 people working in this project across Europe. So it's quite a lot of people and networks involved in running the KIP project. And it's very much a condensed version of working with ecosystems, or condensed, but it's a way of looking at innovation ecosystems and how they can open up more for the culture and creative industries. So in this part, we decided when we wrote the application that we would focus on open innovation and what we call the building blocks in the innovation ecosystems. As in Lund, or most places in Europe, we have not been very good at including the culture and creatives in the ecosystems. We have been, for instance, in Lund, a very mature and old innovation ecosystem, where we have the Science Park, first one in Scandinavia, soon turning 50 years. And at the same time, we've been very good at technology-driven innovation and very specialized incubators and functions. And looking at the culture and creatives that are so many small companies, it's not so easy to target them specifically with an incubator. So what we would like to do from EQIP, where we worked on the policies to develop the ecosystems, is really to open it up more and cross-fertilize between the different faculties, industry, and create joint innovation, thematic innovation portfolios. And in this way, we also need to shift how policy works for the innovation ecosystems to be able to include a broader palette of smaller companies working together with larger companies and researchers. So a little bit more of a messy place instead of too organized innovation ecosystems. But we have had quite a structured process we've been running EQIP for a little bit more than 2 years now. And our approach has been to, from different lenses, from the gaming industry, from performing arts, from craft-led innovation. So from different angles of the culture and creative industries, we looked at the building blocks in the different innovation ecosystems, engaging a lot of networks and partners, running different types of workshops and labs across Europe to get the essence of the different parts of the sector and see how they have been included or not included in different ecosystems. And with a lot of also analyzing other policies and research, and we're collecting all of that kind of data that we together are mobilizing, both from research, AI workshops, different types of events. We formulate policy recommendations on how to open up the innovation ecosystems more structured. And in this way, we also created a toolbox to look at the ecosystems a bit broader. So now it's a long introduction, but it's part of connecting the different parts of what I do, and it's all connected. So it's not like different assignments, it's part of the same. But I can come back to more details.
Yeah, sure. If I will jump to Rolf in a second, but I wanted to ask you, are these policies formulated to whom? I mean, do you when you work with different types of stakeholders in different countries, do you aim for also for local policy or European level policies? And yeah, maybe it would be interesting to see for the day-to-day living creative, how this
Yeah.
can impact him or her or them.
It's a good question. We decided from the beginning to target the European level, of course, as we needed to, and then on a city level. And then we thought things in between there will sort themselves out. So we have a city group with 4 prototype cities, but actually now I think we have a tour with 10 cities across Europe that wants to test to be a prototype city. So we work very much on 2 different levels. We test the recommendations that we develop in a local city ecosystem connected to a live portfolio or to real innovation work, where we prototype together with them, looking at their innovation portfolios and also what kind of needs they have and what kind of stakeholders they need. So it's very much a bottom-up approach where we tailor make it for the city level. But we also created what we called policy dialogues. So now actually we had a dialogue with Creative Greece. We're planning a dialogue in Milan in October with their innovation district and also national partners. We're going to have in Stockholm with our ministries there, and we worked with the ministries in Kosovo that engaged with us as well. So now the national level is actually picking up both the local way we work with the cities and the results from that, and the recommendations that we targeted more to an EU level. But actually, it's the policy journey that is important, because it's the process to look at what kind of cases you have and what kind of needs are there, and how a local city can adapt and adjust that for their context in their local community. So it's quite iterative processes together, but we also are providing the EU with on that EU level. But this is where we also are building a knowledge bank and a community of practitioners to share results and way to operate and make the policies a local important locally, because that's where it's happening actually a lot of times. And a dilemma, for instance, just to give an example, is that the smart specialization strategies that usually funds a lot of the functions within the ecosystems, very few have targeted the culture and creative industries, which means that the structural funds finance cannot be used for this sector. So we need to find other ways to engage the local community and to pay for it. And we can't build separate ecosystems for this sector. We need to tap into what's already there and connect. So it's a quite iterative work. So on all levels, but targeting top and bottom, and then finding ways to sort the in between.
Yeah, actually, it's a sustainable model, because otherwise you can, I mean, there is so much information there, and it's like a network and top down and bottom up, and yeah, I mean, you have to have a clear vision of actually what do you want to achieve. I mean, with all this information, which is kind of raw information, what can you do with it? Yeah. Thank you, Charlotte. I wanted to, of course, you made also the introduction for Rolf. Maybe you would like, Rolf, to share with us your maybe some of your work as a education director in EIT, culture and creativity, because there are more than culture and creativity. There are more than one, and maybe you can just pinpoint. Maybe it would be of interest of our listener to see how is it working for them. I mean, just to try to see the vision and the structure, and then to see what is being done, what an individual can how can an individual take advantage of this huge pile of resources. Please, Ralph.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and also to meet Charlotte and learn more about the amazing work going on at Lund. So the Knowledge Innovation Community, or KIC, EIT is full of these acronyms and jargon. It's the most recent one is Culture and Creativity. There are 9 knowledge innovation communities spanning climate, health, food, urban mobility, energy, digital, and I probably missed a couple there. But the most recent one in 23, established in 23, is Culture and Creativity. And we're set up basically partly to tap into the potential of the enormous contribution made by culture and creative sectors and industries, but also to offer support to where needed, and in my case, in education. So each KIC typically has 3 main pillars, these being education, business creation, and innovation. We additionally have a 4th one, which was originally called Society, is now called Transformation, and is connected to really all 3 of the main pillars. It's a transversal element in a sense that's looking at the sort of impact in society of our activities. And in my case, the main tools I have at my disposal are 2 main calls that happen at least annually. So one is for degree education calls, and that is typically modules in master's or PhD education. So far modules, it will be in the future a full master's program will also fund, but modules, which is the idea of creating courses in entrepreneurship, innovation, business creation, and so on, to support existing master's and PhD programs. And the second main tool is the lifelong learning or continuous professional development, or in other words, non-degree education. And this is in 2 parts. One is EIT labeled, which means we have just applied. We just had the hearing last week for the right to award the EIT label, which is a sort of benchmark or a quality control sort of label that ensures certain quality standards have been reached. And so on one side, our continuous professional development courses are expected to be conforming to the EIT label. And then we also have a non-labeled call, which are typically more skills-based. They may be very, direct and implementable, whereas perhaps the EIT labeled proposals and courses tend to be sort of longer term with a slightly more complex sort of structure to them. In addition to those 2 calls, we also have, through agreement of the membership, so-called ventures, which means we can identify and select topics and present to the membership for them to vote on. And in this year, we had 3 main ventures. One was in open public spaces. One was in the idea of a digital twin. And the third was the idea of a craft academy, which I've been leading. And that will, in fact, be presented at Creative Skills Week on Thursday on a panel that I'm chairing, moderating, which is called The Future of Craft from Tradition to Innovation. So that's really looking at the enormous value of craft practitioners and craft skills in Europe. And on the one side, trying to hold back the disappearing craft skills that are occurring. And on the other side, trying to support craft practitioners who typically graduate from places where I've taught, such as CONSFAC, with very good skills, but with no or practically no business training. So if you substitute the word freelancer for entrepreneur, then you see that they are effectively entrepreneurs without any sort of language or training for that sort of activity. So we want to both strengthen the craft sector and also extend it by positioning it in ways rather like some of the work that Charlotte's described, in ways that would facilitate interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary collaboration. And that is true for the KIC as a whole, I would say, when I'm very much a believer in cross-KIC collaboration, because I think that the problems that we face are complex and multi-layered. And what I used to say when I was a professor in a university was the world has problems and universities have departments. And one could say that EIT has responded to that by creating nine silos, these 9 separate KICs. So happily, we also have a mechanism for cross-KIC collaboration, and I'm very much actively supporting those sort of initiatives, because I think, in my view, culture and creativity is not only important in itself for the culture and creative sectors and industries, but also as the potential facilitator of interdisciplinary collaboration. So I think artists and designers particularly excel at bringing together forms of expertise that are typically kept apart, using the tools of design and art and so on. So I see, a good future for the KIC in terms of its ability to also reformulate existing problems and to sort of creatively reset agendas and help KICs to not only strengthen their own sort of offerings, but also to find interesting collaborative forms. And we're in discussion about, for example, there's an initiative called EIT Campus, which is at the early stages of doing that. I think it's providing a window of the different courses, but I think there's potential there for making that literally a sort of campus, a virtual campus, but also potentially an online exploded campus with all the KICs having regional hubs or co-location centers, which means have a base in all the regions of Europe. So for Sweden, it would be CLC North or Regional Hub North, based in Helsinki, and then we have a base in Amsterdam, Kozice, Vienna, Barcelona, and Bologna. I think that's it. There's 6, should be 6 there. So the idea that when you multiply that by the number of KICs, there's potentially a lot of scope for both designing, or basically designing blended courses that are both online in order to facilitate accessibility, and also in person, using these multiple hubs, regional hubs, for the quality of, the richness and the quality of face-to-face encounters, and maybe at the end of courses, or at summer schools and so on. So I see a great potential and great excitement in that. And I also, if you also add into the mix things like AI's rapidly developing ability to offer simultaneous translation, then I think things become very exciting, because you remove one of the key barriers to learning and participation, which is language. And so somebody might speak in English, but you could choose to listen in Portuguese or Romanian, or even languages outside the European Union, which I think has got really interesting possibilities. So I mean, that's a rough introduction to the KIC. I could go on, but I think that's probably...
Yeah, thank you. I will come back to AI, of course. Yeah, for our colleague, I will make this a short information about AI. There is Maestra, which provides simultaneous captions for this one. And YouTube has also, I don't know if our colleagues encounter this. I mean, for example, for our Romanian videos, you have immediate translation into English. So actually, of course, the accuracy and so on and so forth, but you are suddenly on a very much broader and broader market and scene that you wouldn't have expected. And I think this is a great gain for us all. When you talk about, I don't know, heritage, local knowledge, like crafting and so on and so forth. But maybe we'll come back to it. I would like to address a very specific question. If you just can give us a bit of details, what does it, you mentioned ventures, because we are usually used to, okay, this is a firm, this is a creative boutique, this is a non-profit organization, this is a university, this is a funding body, and so forth. But you have a mixed type of funding and of providing. For example, as you mentioned, for the label, actually you reach out to the market and wait for a dossier, for application to come in, and actually there are these external entities that will provide the courses. For the academy, there is also something that you offer, like a normal, like a normal base course, like a fee course. So how would you a bit guide us through these types of an ecosystem, basically?
Yes, it's a good question, and we're just at the beginning of that process, because we basically have been operational since this year. Really, the grant agreement was signed in December 2024, so we really went from I think there was about 15 or so at the beginning of the year, maybe 20 at the most, and up to now we've gone up to around about 60, 65 or so today. So that's in 9 months we've grown as well, growing our sort of, as well as our teams, we've grown our sort of processes and so on. So we're at the beginning of looking at these multi-stranded funding opportunities. The priority for me has been to get the calls out, EIT funded calls this year, which I see as a sort of transitional year. But we've just, like others, we've just posted our business plan for 26-28, and that has a significant scale up of activities. And one of the requirements we have is financial sustainability. So the idea of EIT funding is time bound, that both we and the courses that we support are intended to become financially sustainable, and so we wean ourselves off the EIT funding over time. In regards to venture specifically, that was basically a model where we can invite the members to make a selection of sort of projects based upon seed funding for 1 year using membership money. So we had the 3 projects, with a certain amount of capital assigned to them to basically check out the idea. And towards the end of those, we had a business developer engaged to also make business models for each of the 3 ventures, of which in the case of the Craft Academy, that is, the conclusion was that would not be a sustainable business venture, but instead we've included it in our business plan as part of a larger academy that I've bid for or have proposed, which is, again, I'll be talking about on Thursday, but it's basically an Academy of Creative Entrepreneurship. So that'll be an umbrella organization for a number of satellite academies, such as a Craft Academy, and others as they evolve through contact with external partners or with members and so on. What the venture allows us to do is work in a way that is not bound in the same way by EIT regulations. So it has a lot more flexibility in terms of funding models and so on. And also it allows us to sort of produce another revenue stream to feed into our financial sustainability requirement. But we have other things in mind, such as sponsorship, and then, using the academy for a mixture of in-house courses and externally commissioned courses. We'd like to build up a teaching team that we can call upon. And all this will, develop over time. But I should have said in my introductory remarks, left a key thing out, which is that because of the early discussions for the KIC in round about 23, and we had these strategic topic groups that reported in 5 priority areas were decided that went into our strategic agenda. So we're still operating under that strategic agenda, and that means the 5 areas that we have are architecture, cultural heritage, fashion, gaming, architecture, fashion, gaming, cultural heritage, and what have I missed out? Audiovisual media. And so they go across education, innovation, business creation. And obviously we want to make red threads between those different sort of programs, so that somebody it's a bit like the Hotel California effect. You might enter the KIC, but you might never leave. So if you come in at education, then you might be channeled towards business creation next, and then innovation, and then back to education, and so on. So our aim is to provide values to our alumni, not just provide sort of one-off 1 year or 2 year or 3 year courses and things. And I should say that in addition to those 5 strategic areas, I've introduced to the last 2 calls 2 further elements. One is youth entrepreneurship, because this is a way of taking the idea of lifelong learning seriously and sort of flagging at an early age that the entrepreneurship model exists, and it could be something on your horizon if you're that way motivated. So just to sort of establish through things like summer schools, sort of winter schools, this possibility, and that is part of a sort of a wider sort of EIT incentive. And then I think for lifelong learning, and then I think the other aspect is what we're calling emerging technologies, which invariably has AI looming large, but not only AI, it's also things like virtual reality and augmented reality and extended reality, which is obviously important in gaming and audiovisual media and elsewhere. So the potential of these areas are, very exciting, because they allow you also to rethink not only the content, but also the learning platforms. You think about how much is done on little objects this size these days, or how, one can introduce sort of gaming principles and combine these sort of everyday activities, which are partly social, partly to do with well-being, like going to the gym, and partly to do with learning, which is also well-being, and make them, weave them into the everyday fabric of people's lives, so that learning is not something that takes place on the castle on the hill anymore, but rather it's sort of something you cross the road and go to your local library on the way home, for example, or the foyer of a hotel, or a theatre during the hours when it's not being used for performance. All these are potential sites of learning to really raise to the ambitions of the EU more widely. And I should also mention, amongst the cross-KIC activities, we're heavily involved in the thing called HEI, which is the Higher Education Initiative, which is spanning all 9 KICs, has been very successful in its first phase, and has got significant funding, is really scaling up their call and their programs. So we have 6 projects from that initiative, which is very good for us. And then there's other cross-KICs, such as Girls Go Circular, which is introducing girls and young women from 14 to, I think it's 22, I should check that. But that sort of age group originally it was to circular practice, and now in the second phase it will be into STEM education, or as I'm trying to call it, STEAM, bringing the arts into the STEM equation. And the other element is indeed EIT STEM, which I will, we have been elected to lead that program in 26-28, which is great news for us, because that puts technology education also centrally in our KIC. but it also gives us the opportunity to make the case for incorporating arts into that equation and to balance that out a bit more.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, STEAM. STEM girls. Yes. Power to the girls. Yeah, I'd like to stay in this interdisciplinarity area, and I would make a remark that well, during pandemics and afterwards, this I don't know how to call it, because it's not a subject, it's not an issue, it's a whole area, the culture and health, I mean, got into the public eye, and more projects appeared. But maybe you can tell us how would you connect, for example, this domain health, that you wouldn't necessarily connect immediately with the culture, and if you do, you think, oh my God, I mean, what is this? Artists go to the hospitals, or is this art therapy? What is it? So actually, to move a bit from a guessing part, what can this how these two domains connect to a more broader vision, and why not a policy vision? How would you put it, please?
Maybe I can share a slide, actually. I get some use
Time
of
for
them.
slides. Yes, please.
Now I'll see how there we have it. Now I'll see if I can get this working.
Yeah, all good.
Do you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So for us, we use this approach with the multi-stakeholder environment when we do the policy work. And this is a quite classical image of, I think, EU developed in some parts, in some project a long time ago. And open innovation is an effect of that we had closed innovation. That's not really a term, but anyway. And an organization going out, opening up, bringing in some external competences on a research agenda or something they would like to develop, and then going out testing it in the ecosystem. We are with this cross-innovation thematics, turning that from the other side. So instead of starting with a challenge from a specific organization, we're starting in this ecosystem approach where we can find different research knowledge, we can find a new technology, we can find a challenge with a green transformation or healthcare, and we try to find relevant cross-innovation areas with multi-stakeholders. And we explore that quite a lot in this, what we call the yellow zone. So starting to have this cross-fertilizing of knowledge, sharing it quite freely, actually. And in that process, you find challenges more specific that you want to test in a project, or you want to try out something together with a smaller group of partners. So then you go into the green from the right-hand side here with the arrow below, and you do a project together and you test something, and you, like you do when you do a concept car, you don't bring the whole thing into your own organization, and you don't ever get to drive a concept car out on the normal market, but you bring pieces of that into the blue, and it fertilizes your development work that you have within your organization. So what we would like to do with the policy recommendations, it's really to open up for more of these yellow explorative phases, where we have different challenges or new technologies or new legislation, like we are seeing within the fashion side and the textile, where we need to recycle and we need to have transparency of where the fibers are coming from and how we're handling them. So by putting a lot of knowledge together within this ecosystem approach, finding ways to work together across sectors with concrete projects in the green, and then bringing solutions into different organizations. So with our policy work, we're very much in the yellow and the green, and then we hope to be able to make it interesting enough for the companies being part of this to bring it into commercialization in the blue. I don't know if this answered your question, but it's part of. Did I stop sharing? Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yes. Okay. So it's part of turning that around, and we also see from the university, for instance, when we have our design department, bigger organizations, they come in and they almost treat the university as a sort of a consultancy. They come with their specific problems and they want the students to work on their very specific problems. And we say, in this way, we would like to actually bring more trend analysis, new technologies, and we want to share it in a more structured way in the yellow, and then try to make it into student projects or other partners' projects. So instead of having very tight briefs coming from the blue to the green to the yellow, we want to work the other way around, and opening up for the culture and creatives are very good at interpreting, creating a common language, setting the vision. So having that kind of more messy spaces is perfect for the creatives to be part of helping and structuring that, sharing that. And then going into the green, we also limited in smaller groups the IP. Maybe you are a partner writing a proposal for a project, and then you also handle your IP. So in the yellow, we share freely. In the green, you make an agreement with a smaller group, and then you commercialize in the blue. So it's also creating policies where we can actually stay a bit longer in the yellow and explore a bit more together and find ways of doing that more structured.
Thank you. Yes, it's a very good general answer, which is great for other domains to be connected with our creative industries and cultural and creative industries. I will have a tricky question, and hopefully we will keep the time that we envisage in the first place. Are you ready? What do you think is innovation? But of course, I will not leave it like that way.
Okay.
Maybe I will ask you what would be innovation from an academia, but also from a policy point of view. And for Rolf, if I may, what would be artistic research as an innovation driver? So maybe we can take it from different parts, and we will have, of course, many more answers than one. So please, Charlotte.
Yeah, so innovation for me, it's also a matter of grading. You can have something quite incremental and easy, also being something new in a new context. And you can have something very radically new that is really shifting the way we do. So innovation can be along a scale of something that's not so new, but something that's very new. And then we can also have innovations within processes, methods, services, products. So it's a quite big range of things that can be part of this being new. But then a lot of times we mix up innovation and invention, and that's not the same thing. So an idea for me is usually something you have an idea of solving a problem. You have some kind of notion of this I want to solve. And when you have solved that, you have an invention. But when you bring it out to a market or when it gets used, this solution, then it becomes an innovation. So innovation is when it's in practice, it's used somewhere. But in this landscape, you can see so much. So it's what we discovered when we doing these policies for innovation, working with the creatives as well, also working a lot with the cities. The civil servants on the cultural side, they are very used to cultural policy, and they are not at all used to innovation policy. So we actually made quite an effort to also distinguish between cultural policy and innovation policy, where cultural policies are very much focused on the person, the artist, the IP around that, copyright, where it comes out of your creative skill, while innovation is very much on what are you putting on the market, and it's a different types of policy. So also, but they could work together in a very nice way. So we're also trying to find ways where cultural policy financing different venues or theaters, for instance, but working together with innovation policy, saying, okay, this could be a test bed for innovation. How can we try out things here? So if we can combine cultural policy with innovation policy, the creatives can have double win. So you can pick financing from both sides, but you need to understand when it's cultural money and when it's innovation money. Mm-hmm.
Super, excellent. Yeah, it's a bit, it sounds a bit complicated because indeed I have been observing that this is unfortunately a very divided thing. I mean, either you are with culture, either you are with industry. You cannot mix them. Artist is something very high, very intellectual, very hard filled with. So in Romania as well is this dichotomy, you know, how I will not sell my art. So a bit, I think it's a bit of a misunderstanding. I mean, you can mix, you can stay on one side, you can just understand and not take part of it, but I think it's the aim that matters. I mean, why are you doing that? I mean, why are you funding a theater? Why are you doing a creative business? So yeah.
It's just too short to say yes, and we shouldn't mess with the art. That should be on its own. But in order to do art, it might be needed a lot of innovations, like the tools and technologies and outreach. So there are a lot of things that an artist actually needs to be able to conduct their works, and innovations around that as well. So it's bringing both those worlds together without destroying one another in any way. Just more finding a good way of in symbiosis between it.
And maybe Rolf, would you like to come in with the fresh information? What do you do with artistic research? Not to keep it in a tower that is not touched by any influences. So it's only the muses and the inspiration. How would you connect it with this innovation part, taking into consideration or taking into account that innovation requires a bit of, I don't know, maybe practical skills, maybe a different type of thinking. The question, why do I do that? Yeah, please, it's an open question.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I liked very much Charlotte's answer, so I would sort of underline everything that she said. But I think artistic research may be the symbiosis that Charlotte was calling for, in the sense that you know, between the exceptionalism of art, you know, and the pragmatic applied quality of the market, there is an experimental dimension to artistic research. And so artistic research is using the tools of the arts in order, based upon the premise that there will be forms of research insights that can be arrived at uniquely through the tools that are specific to the arts, whether that's dance, ceramics, filmmaking, acting, you know, whatever it is. that would not be arrived at through any other means. You know, so you couldn't get to the same result by sitting in a library and sort of theorizing it or sort of dreaming it up. So that means, in a sense, that these people engaged in artistic research are sort of innovators avant la lettre, in a sense, except they don't necessarily take it through to the practical stage that Charlotte mentioned, which is innovation is the idea in action. And so the short answer would be between the experimental, explorative, and the critical inquiry of artistic research and the strategic demands of the market, you need to build structured bridges, you know, between the two. So how do you do that? Well, you could do it through things like integrating entrepreneurial education, directly into creative practice, which is what we're doing. You can teach practical skills like business model design and intellectual property management, strategic planning, financial literacy in a way that resonates with creative practitioners because it's relevant to them. You can build up entrepreneurial competencies in both directions. You can support cross-disciplinary collaboration through the knowledge triangle and breaking down the silos between higher education institutes and research centers and the business sector. And then ultimately, through prototyping, iterative design, user-centered exploration, you can create structured pathways that take you from research to venture creation. And we're sort of trying to do this now. We have initiatives like the Creative Pioneers program and 100 to Watch list, which are part of our, not our education, but our sort of innovation and business creation programs. If I could sort of just give a couple of examples, which I think also relate to the previous question about the connection to health, if I may. Both of them are Sweden-based. So the first one is when I started a new program called Experience Design at Consvac, a new master's program. And that was this is with Ronald Jones at the time. The idea of experience design was designing meaningful experience across time. So it was using the design disciplines, but you know, with a focus on the intangible rather than the artifact, the object. And so this became obviously an interdisciplinary venture. One of the things we taught was interdisciplinarity, and it was also interesting to see how it could be applied. So one of the research success stories what we had was a collaboration with Stockholm's Sjukhem and Umeå Palliative Care. So both of these sites were concerned with palliative care, so taking care of people in the last stages of life. Very inspiring to work with those nurses, you know, incredibly inspiring people. And we brought in our design students to think about how is time experienced when you are living the last weeks of your life? How is it experienced differently for the staff, for the patient, for the visiting family, and so on? And so they started intervening in these hospital spaces using time as the metric, whereas previously design would go in and say, oh, you need to make it more blue, it's more relaxing, or oh, you need the windows to be better. You know, I'm not mocking those efforts, but you know, I'm saying that this would be the cliched use of design in that type of setting. Whereas what this was doing was looking at things that were not visible and the experience of time, and coming up with proposals that would allow this, what were being experienced as tensions at certain points, such as visiting hours, to redesign the ritual or the experience of time in those moments. And that led to a very successful research application, and now it's being implemented in lots of palliative care institutes. It's actually leading the way. The other thing I'd mention, which is on a larger scale, is Charlotte will be surely aware of it, which is the Stockholm School of Entrepreneurship. And this is an initiative that is created to, I think originally through HM funding. The founder of H&M decided there was a lack of entrepreneurship education in Swedish education, so put some money into a school for teaching entrepreneurship, and it exists as a sort of hub to serve the 5 or 6 main universities in Stockholm. So the Business School, the Royal Institute of Technology, the Stockholm University, Karolinska, the Health Institute, and Consvac, and now it's joined by the Royal Music School as well. And I was involved in the early days of that initiative and also in creating some programs and education initiatives. And what's really inspiring about that is when you get students, they tend to be self-selecting, highly motivated students from those institutes. When you have them in the same room and you give them tools like design thinking and so on, they are amazing when they start thinking across, they don't have problems with these institutional categories or these identities to do with disciplines. That's kind of 19th century stuff. They're looking very pragmatically in how to exchange the skills and tools and perspectives, the worldviews that they have. They start exchanging with students from the other institutes, and very, very exciting things come out of that, which I could talk about all night, but we've run out of time. So I just think that that's an interesting model to facilitate these types of interactions, and I think that could be scaled up as well in other ways.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's a very nice initiative.
Thank you so much. Thank you.